Like it's a lot of stuff that goes on in Chicago. Well, Chicago's huge, but it's a lot of
Right.
stuff that goes on here.
And like every week, I always tell y'all we have some amazing people to talk to. And this one is not going to be a disappointment to you at all. I follow and support her. She's in Chicago, but she's from Memphis, from South Memphis to be exact. And she resides in Chicago doing amazing things for Black restaurants. And here in Oklahoma City, y'all have heard me talk about OKC Black Restaurant Weeks, and we got bingo coming up. Well, she's been at this game longer than me. My friend, my sorrow, living in Chicago, Miss Lauran. How are you doing, ma'am?
Apollo, I'm doing absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to tell you why I'm doing so good today. Because It's not snowing. It's not negative 14 degrees. I will take the 35 that I see right now. Hey, it's a good day.
Well, we got some sun today. We had some sleet and some cold weather down here too. So I'm glad I could wear a light jacket and a hoodie just today, because
that's what I did. Yes.
It was not playing around. All right, so I got a lot of questions.
Okay.
And for people that don't know you, just let folks know who you are, and then tell them what you do. Who is Lauran?
Well, I am Lauran Adele Smith. I am from South Memphis, aka Twinkletown, down there in Tennessee. My father is a former pastor, just recently retired. My mom, God rest her soul, was a banker. I'm the firstborn of three. I am the oldest. Let's see, who else am I? I'm a writer. I am a digital marketing professional. I am a content creator. Let's see what I am, a lover of working with young people and youth, and I've done that for 10 years or better. I also sing when I felt like it, like in real life. I can sing for real. What else? Who else am I? I'm not anybody's mom. I have a puppy.
Start. We might mess around. You might bust
and
out.
I won't do it. But I mean, to give credit to some of my work. I mean, because people, everybody can sing. I don't use autotune. Let me do that. I actually have natural vocal ability. My mother was a singer. My father has perfect pitch. I have perfect pitch. And I've done background for John Legend and Common before. And I've also recorded with Kirk Whalum, who was actually somebody I grew up with. And Kirk has played with Whitney Houston and Luther Vandross, and he's a jazz saxophonist. So to, give a little credit to my talent, I definitely do the singing thing. I just don't do the singing thing, if that makes sense.
And so quite naturally, because the question I posed was who you are, you start talking about what you do.
Can't help it.
It's really is a hard question to answer, right? It really is, because we don't like to talk about who we are because we get so caught up into our work and we find value into what we do. Mm-hmm. So during this conversation, if you hear me kind of interrupt you, push back a little bit, because I want people to listen to this conversation and as if they've had an opportunity to sit next to you and get into your thought process. Now, it's not always we get to kind of see inside someone's thoughts, because we know how people like copy and steal, and they do all we've had those life experiences. But I want people to hear it. So I want to start with talking about Memphis, because I'm curious, even like growing up in Memphis, because we have this, people have an idea, if you've never visited Memphis, from the history and civil rights and all those things. But for you, what was it like for you growing up in South Memphis?
Memphis for me, my best memories were family, meaning not just my biological family, my mom, dad, siblings, grandparents, and all that. I'm talking all of my friends' parents knew each other. We all went to church every Sunday. Sunday dinner with the entire family was a thing. So for Memphis, it was just always togetherness, family, and Memphis is the South, baby. So Southern hospitality, folks speaking to you. They see a funeral procession, they're actually going to stop. I just remember a sense of always being able to see family in anybody that I came into contact with. So that was Memphis for me.
Okay. And to me that sounds like, well, let me say this. I think it sounds like the typical childhood experience for people in our age. So if you were born between, I would say like 73, 74 to let's say 81, allow them to have a little bit. You had a lot of this experience of togetherness and eating together and knowing your neighbors and being around and going to church wasn't an option. And Sunday school, devotion, put your church shoes up. Guys who was wearing patent leather shoes, the whole shebang. And it's so funny when you hear somebody else talk about it, their childhood, how so many things connect. So is your family, your parents, are they originally from Memphis?
They are from Memphis. My father, my father's people are from Brooksville, Mississippi, but my dad is from Memphis. My mom is also from Memphis. Yep.
Okay, so did your dad ever talk about how your family went from Mississippi to Memphis?
Now, his dad's side of the family are all brick masons. Like the men in my on my dad's side of the family, they're all brick masons, and brick masonry is just one of those laboring type jobs. So my grandfather, which is my dad's father, I don't have the story of how he eventually got to Memphis, because my grandmother, my dad's mom, is also not from Memphis. They're from Mississippi as well. I don't know how they got to Memphis. I want to get that part of the story because that is interesting. But I come from a family of brick masons, so heavy labor is what I knew the men in my family to do. It stopped at my dad because he went into education. So
okay. So if you look at what you do now, all the things that you rattled off that you do, where did that come from? Can you see now where all those different interests and being willing to try different things, can you see in correlations where that come from in your family environment?
I actually can, because my mother was always a strong advocate of, you got to try new things. You got to experience some things. You got to, we're going to make sure that we always introduce you all to new experiences. It's not just going to be movies and going to a theme park. You're going to go to plays. You're going to go to Broadway productions. They wanted the exposure, museums, and we're going to take you out of Tennessee. A lot of people don't get the opportunity to travel outside of their block. Especially, I'm learning that in Chicago.
Yeah.
All I know is my block. It took me 20 years before I even made it to downtown Chicago, is what I'm hearing people say. So my parents just made sure they exposed us to so much of the world. But yeah, I get a lot of trying new things and all of that from like my mom, and I get my entrepreneurial spirit from my father because he actually owned a music store business in Memphis before we moved to Chicago.
Okay. So how old were you when y'all moved to Chicago?
It was in 1990. So I was either 12 going on 13 or 11 going on 12. So
okay.
Yeah, I've been here for well over 30 years, but Memphis is still my home. Chicago ain't home for me.
I got you. I got you. So when you mentioned the differences, like to me, when I went my first time visited Chicago, before Chicago, I visited Milwaukee. And that was my first time. I was like, everything's like a square. And I remember my older cousins were telling me, we were riding bikes. They were like, don't go here or don't go there. And I was like, I'm from the country, small town boy. So I'm having a great time. I'm seeing them houses that I see on the Cosby Show, got the basements and the grass and all that stuff. So I'm excited. And then we went to the store and I got lost. And that's when I started to understand, each area has a different community group or ethnicity. So as a person like me coming and seeing it, I was like, man, they got all this different culture and good food. But I didn't understand that it was a very segregated city for a reason.
Yeah.
So here you are coming out of Memphis, like a very active place for the civil rights movement, a lot of civil rights history and blues and jazz, and barbecue and all this stuff. And you go from there to Chicago. How was that adjustment?
I actually, my father, it was either my father or my mother said it, that I told them that I wanted to run away because being a Southern person, you always hear stories about other large cities. You hear stories about New York. You hear stories about California. You hear stories about Florida, Chicago. You know what I'm saying? So there was some fear that set in because I didn't know what a gang was, like, you know, gang affiliation or any of that until I moved to Chicago. Not saying that they weren't in Memphis. I'm pretty sure they are and were. I didn't know what any of that was. And when I got to Chicago, that's when I learned about the gang culture. And it was like, oh God, they are just, it's just too much. Because again, I'm coming from a small town. Everybody is like this. But then you get to Chicago, I'm not used to, and I hate to say this, but actually I don't hate to say it. I'm not used to my friends having to go over their father's house for the weekend. Like all of my friends' parents were married. Everybody was all in one house. So when I, you know, started my new school when I was a kid here, and they, you know, you ask the question, what y'all doing this weekend? Or what, you know, what are y'all doing? Oh, I'm going over my dad's house. Or, oh, I'm going over my mom's house. Like, wait, what? You don't live with your parents? Like that. And I'd be asking, they'd be looking at me like, girl, no, I ain't lived with my father in so long. And then I'd be like, oh, well, and I tell them what I'd be doing on the weekend. I'm like, and after church on Sunday, we going to do X, Y, Z. You go to church. And then they asking me, you go to church? I'm like, you don't go to church. Like it was just a totally different culture shock. Yeah. One thing I say, my parents were not going to ever let go of that. I'm glad that they didn't. Yeah. You know, the church every Sunday, because that's, you know, that was necessary. That was a part of who I was growing up as well. You gonna be in this church house. I don't care what you did on Saturday. You're gonna be up in here. And, you know, just because my friends that I met in Chicago would have sleepovers on Saturday night, because they're normally not in church on Sunday, my parents would come and pick me up early Sunday morning. Take your church clothes over there, get dressed, and we're going to go to church. What do you think this is? Like, you're not going to come up here and adapt to whatever that type of culture is, because we're not doing that.
What they call you, country?
Oh, all the time, because even now I say some words that still sound Southern to people and they can hear it. Yeah. But when I first moved here, everybody sounded different to me. And evidently I sounded different to everybody too. They like, oh, you talk like this. And I'm like, I don't sound like that. Of course, but you don't think you sound like that. Right. But everybody has an accent. You can hear something. And so it was just, oh, you country, you from the South. I'd be like, I'd rather be from the South than from here, because y'all crazy up here. And because my parents, again, small city to a big city, they didn't know a lot of these people. You didn't really, my church friends, my parents knew their parents. Yeah. But like my school friends, I didn't really go to many places with school friends because you don't know what type of houses these people in.
So so you were 12. You were 12. So basically 12, preteen, moving into that environment. And you mentioned, like, you were like, you know, I wanted to leave, want to run away. But how did you adjust? Like, how was that on you as a 12-year-old preteen, coming into teenage and womanhood, and life is just becoming different in your just world, period. Now you're having to figure out, this city is different than the first 11 and a half, 12 years of what you're familiar with. How was that?
The adjustment wasn't really that bad because, again, no matter the miles in between us, we talk to our family down south weekly basis, sometimes every other day. So I was always connected to my roots. So I just felt like we were 8 hours, because that's an 8-hour drive up and down 57 to 55 to get to Memphis. So I was just an 8-hour drive, hour flight away from my people, because I still talk to them on the phone, you know, do all that. But the adjustment wasn't too bad. Just kind of learning different family dynamics was what I had to get adjusted to, because again, I'm used to, if I'm going to my friend's house in Memphis, both her parents are going to be involved in whatever it is that we're doing, whether we go into the park, you know. But then if I go somewhere with some of my friends up in Chicago, I might just be with my friend's mom and maybe her older sister. You know, I just had to kind of get used to there not being a man in the house a lot of the time with some of my friends here in Chicago. And that was really the adjustment. It wasn't too difficult, but it was just like, dang, it's not a lot of, and I mean, you know, not to get off on a tangent, but it kind of played out in a lot of some of my friends' relationships with men because they did not see a steady male figure, father figure, positive male figure, whatever around them. So, you know, that's a story for another day, but it was just, that was more of the adjustment. I never saw my friends' fathers.
So I got a question for that. And it kind of, to me, it starts to make sense of why you became an educator in the classroom environments that you were in. So graduated high school, and then you attended what university?
I went to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. Okay.
So you went to Southern Illinois University, and that's where you became a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated?
Yes. Yes. Cross those sands, spring 2000.
Okay. Spring 98 over here. So when you, at what point did you start to think about what you wanted to do with your career? Was education something you knew going to college, or discovered at what point that I want to enter a field of education? Because I'm to me, this is how you come across to me, as a person with a nurturing spirit. You want to see people do well. You care about people. You are not afraid to have a conversation with someone, whatever their experiences are, but reach them where they are to pull them up. And to me, that takes a person with some diverse experiences. It's influenced by their life or some experience itself. But did you have an idea that you wanted to be an educator?
That was not even in my plan. I was going to go to law school after undergrad.
Okay.
That's what I was going to do.
Talk about that.
I could still be an attorney later on. You know, you don't never stop learning, but I got my bachelor's degree in English pre-professional studies. You can do anything with an English degree. Teach, law, you know, be a corporate CEO, whatever, because you got to know how to read and write. And you have to know how to, you know, decipher different documents, just whatever. But I was going to go to law school. But then I kind of was like, well, let me just get a job, you know, because again, I come from a culture, meaning my parents get a 9 to 5, go to work, do your work, come home, wake up, rinse, repeat. You do it again the same day. So I kind of came out of that. My internship prior to graduation turned into a full-time job, whatever. But I was still thinking about law school. The thing that ultimately stopped me from even focusing like I needed to on trying to get into law school, study well, and do well on the LSATs is because my mother fell ill with cancer. And I was helping my father in the care of, of her while she was facing this illness, because he was still pastoring. He was still having to go to different states and preach or do whatever it was. That he was
doing. Wait. I think I missed that part. So, okay. So your father was a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you wasn't missing no church.
Well, no, he wasn't a pastor when we first moved here.
Okay.
He became a pastor after going to McCormick Theological Seminary. That's one of the, seminaries here for people going into the minister, field or whatever. And we attended from 90 to 96, Trinity United Church of Christ, at where Jeremiah A. Wright Jr. was then pastoring. Mm-hmm. So we moved here. My father received the call to the ministry in Memphis. We ended up moving here, like I said, in 1990. By the time 1996 rolled around, he was going to be pastoring his own congregation out in the south suburbs of Chicago. But prior to us moving to Chicago, my father was in education. He was a Memphis City Schools band director. Okay. He taught music. But again, that's classroom. So he still had interactions with youth all the time and still helping them do whatever it is that they needed to do. So I guess, and he's a writer and he's a musician and, I'm all of those things as well. So, some stuff you end up doing, you don't even realize
it's your environment.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So
that's kind of how that goes.
I wonder, because I saw this kind of play out with some of my younger nephews and nieces, that, you know, one nephew is able to do more just because he's, you know, he maybe spends more time with me, and they're in a smaller town, and you hear their conversations about, you know, little things that kids say, you know, you got money or you spoiled. They start saying that stuff just because they have different experiences. Do you can you see yourself attributing all those different type of experiences are the reasons why you don't seem to be afraid to try?
Because my parents never made me feel like I couldn't do anything. They never discouraged me. If I said I wanted to be an astronaut and fly spaceships off the top of a building, okay, well, what we got to do? Let's research it. Whatever me and my siblings decided that we wanted to do or wanted to try, they made sure they located those resources so that we could see if we liked it. I decided I wanted to run track. They started going to my track meets, made sure I had everything I needed, made sure I was at all my track meets and practices, whatever else. When I started in the band in high school, my father taught me how to play the flute. I mean, I have a whole band director right here that knows how to play every instrument. So he taught me how to play the flute, made sure I was prepared. I took lessons from him. I was taking piano lessons when I was in Memphis. I started playing the piano at the age of 4 or 5. And then I stopped playing at 18, but I continued my piano lessons when I moved to Chicago. They always made sure to invest, not just financially, but, you know, emotionally and with time into whatever it was that we wanted to do. So if you're raised in a household where people are going to make you believe that you can do whatever you put your mind to and do the work for, that's what you're going to do. And you won't be afraid to tell somebody else that. I was never afraid to tell a kid that. Never. I was like, dude, I don't know if I can get in college, Miss Smith, because anybody in my family go to college. That don't mean nothing. Well, Miss Smith, both your parents went to college and you went to college. I'm like, that's what they did. I said, but my grandparents didn't go to college. But my grandparents told them that they could go if that's what they wanted to do. And I'm telling you, you can go if that's what you want to do. I'm not afraid to tell nobody nothing.
So when you decide, so then when you became an educator, what did you enter the field in? Like what courses or what classroom did you have?
So I didn't teach in the classroom. I was a guidance counselor assistant at one of the elementary schools. And then when I moved over to the high school area, I was a dean. So, you know, people noticed the way that my rapport that I established with young people. They noticed that and they actually listened to me. I talked to them crazy as I don't know what. But sometimes you have to get
I remember one live and you were talking about something and I was like, she talked to her kids like that?
Oh, I say.
And I was like, oh yeah, she definitely from South Memphis.
I'm like, one of them only because I tell my kids all the time, if I'm fussing at you, I care about you. I promise you. If I'm not in your business, if I'm not caring about anything that you got going on, then you need to be concerned because I love all children. Like I'll do anything within reason for a child or somebody else's child. I have no kids and I like being able to work with kids in the capacity that I have. But it's like, oh yeah, I've cussed kids out in front of their parents. I don't play with kids.
And the reason why I bring that up is because there was you were talking about a circumstance. I guess there was one of your former students that had some things were going on, and a former student reaches out to you because you've established this rapport with them, and then you know, and you also have talked about, you know, the impact of having two parents and in that household, and they don't, and they in their head they're like, well, the reason why you got it good because you got this, because they didn't experience it, but then you became the person they wanted to model, they wanted to trust, or they needed somebody. Like having that, I'm not gonna say it's responsibility.
It's a responsibility. I take that as a responsibility.
No, I'm trying to say there's not it's a different word that I'm trying to find. Not so much like, because responsibility can in this way can mean more, it almost can sound like a duty. I'm not saying it's a duty. It's like it's a gift, right? It's something that you're gifted with, that your spirit attracts somebody who is looking for something, because it really is a privilege to have someone be vulnerable and tell you, this is what's going on in my life, and trust you with it, and you are handling it responsibly. Do you remember when you were a guidance counselor, some of the first experiences you had, and how you deal with it? And how did you feel about that? Like, how did you feel about this student is helping me? You know what? Can you describe a moment where a student was vulnerable with you and you're like, I don't know how to help them?
You know what, to be honest with you, I think it was a situation where a child, 6th grade, 7th grade, but he got younger siblings at the other building, which was a couple of, maybe a block or so down the street. I don't know the experience of having to take care of my siblings. And when I say take care of my siblings, I didn't have to find food for them. I didn't have to make sure they got up the next day for school. I didn't have to make sure they ate something. I didn't have to make sure, they had their homework done. But a 6th or 7th grader got to make sure that his brother or sister gets something to eat that night, because he doesn't know if his mom is coming home. I don't know nothing about that because my parents were there. And I always had food. The lights were always on. You know what I'm saying? So when a student would come to me and say, Ms. Smith, I think I'm about to be in trouble. Well, what you do? First thing, what happened? What you do? What? Well, the guy across the street talking about something, he gonna call my house because I stole some chips or something from the store. Once I got into that student's history and to understand what that kid was talking about, he was merely trying to find some food to eat for his siblings. And maybe if he stole some noodles, kids know how to make noodles. You can make those in the microwave. So he'll go to the store and steal some noodles or whatever to make for his siblings, because that became his responsibility. So I don't know the responsibility of having to care for young children because I was able to be a child. So that's the only thing that I would have to say that I couldn't relate to my kids on, is that I didn't have to grow up fast. I was able to be 12 at 12, be 13 at 13, and, not have to think about, well, dang, am I going to eat today? Never had to think about that. So that's where I couldn't relate.
So when you had you said a bit earlier that when you just got to Chicago, you noticed that there were not fathers going to go visit dad in a different place, and maybe they didn't travel as much or didn't leave the area, and you have those experiences. And I could imagine how that makes you feel like, and to a degree, a fish out of water.
I was.
Or make you feel like, not say question, but you don't feel like you are connecting with somebody, right? And in that time, but then you become a professional, and now you have these students that are attaching themselves to you because you are a visual example of what's possible that they may have not seen. Now, I guess down the road, so when you become a dean of high school, how did you lead in that type of capacity where you started to notice that I want these students to understand what's possible, and they don't have to do what everybody else has normally done in their environment, their life?
Really, it was just a lot of my experiences, even though, I grew up differently from them and I didn't, experience the hardships that I've dealt with homeless students, but they still come to school every day. But, the school system will provide them bus cards to get there. And you know how it goes, and give them food. And so my ultimate thing was just to be honest. I'm not going to put on airs, and I'm not going to hide the fact that, yes, I came up in a 2-parent household. But I would say things like, just because you did not come from a 2-parent household doesn't mean that you can't have your own 2-parent household when you take care of these other responsibilities. Because if you start doing all of this stuff and having babies and stuff early, you might slow some things down in your life, and it may cause some confusion. So if you take care of yourself first, get on your feet first, then you can see bringing children into the world and, doing all of these extra things so that it won't get in the way of you trying to establish the foundation for your life. But the other thing that, helped me in my role, my students did not know what the word consistency even looked like in a person. I was at work every day, unless, if I was sick, which was rare. or if I had a meeting that I had to go off site, and they would really fuss at me like, Miss Smith, I know you crazy. How you gonna go somewhere and not tell us you going? I've been looking for you all. I mean, I would get fussed at because it's like my clock in time was 7:30. I would get to work at 6:45, 7 o'clock because I wanted a moment with my coffee. I wanted a moment to say some prayer because I knew those kids were gonna come in there with something. Somebody was going to do something. God, just hold me and keep me for whatever I'm gonna run into today. Because I've gone from students getting into fights right in front of me in the office to students lighting fireworks on the second floor of the building. You never know what you're gonna get in a school environment.
Right.
You just never. So I'm just like, God, just keep us. Don't let the school burn down today. Don't let anybody get shot today. Let all my students return tomorrow so that we can,
Right.
I would always want to just take a moment. Nobody was there talking to me. No, nothing, no work needed to be done. Let me just have a brief moment of meditation with the Lord so I can pray over my students' safe travel there and me for a safe mindset. Because I don't want to just clean set none of the teachers. You still got to think about the other people you work with too. My focus was on the kids. I didn't care what nobody else had going on. I was nice and kind, and I did what I was supposed to do, and still have relationships with people I work with, then.
Right.
But I was focused on those kids. And what those kids did not see was consistency. I was there every day. So I wouldn't show up.
They knew that you were there early.
And some of them would start coming early because they just wanted to sit with me in my office and finish up their homework. And they knew I would let them. They knew they had peace with me in the morning. They knew that if they were going to come in there, I'd be like, look, now if you're going to come in here, I don't care nothing about you listening to you. This is how I'm talking to them. If you're going to listen to your music, put it in your ears. I don't need to know about it and turn it down. Because if I hear it, I'm going to kick you out.
And that makes sense because you were talking about, they were not able to be a kid. And for the time that you they got a chance to be with you, like, you probably had something to do. And in this space, you don't have to assume the role of an adult. You are a student. You got to finish your homework. You got to read or just taking a break or whatever. You're allowed to do that in this space. And I can see that consistency having an impact on, I got to get to school, or I got to make sure that I'm doing well because I don't want Miss Lauran to be mad at me. Those kind of things are natural things that you think kids would learn younger, but some of them are probably not getting that experience until they're in their high school age.
And they don't know how to have healthy dialogue, even in a disagreement with an adult, because they're used to somebody, one, calling them out of their name, or two, telling them what they can't do. I don't know why you going to parents to my high school students would say, I don't know why you care nothing about that school. You ain't doing nothing after high school anyway. It don't matter. You gonna end up right in this house working like so if you're hearing that, but then you come to school every day and you hear Miss Smith talk about college and Miss Smith got businesses and Miss Smith does this and I can't believe Miss Smith ain't got no kids and and Miss Smith just living her good life. She having a good time. When you see another Black person able to do those types of things and you're young as well, I want to do what Miss Smith do. I want to be like Miss Smith. I don't want to have no kids early like my mama did or like my auntie. I want to go to college. I don't want to be around Chicago, end up get shot and killed because I was at the wrong place at the wrong. So for me, it was just like, look, dude, I don't know what you got going. And I told them this. I don't know what you got going on at home. And I'm not knocking your home life because that's where you live. But when you're here, I'm holding you to a standard. If I find out again from another teacher that you cutting up in the room, I'm gonna come up in that classroom and set your tail out. I will embarrass you in front of these people, or I will pull you out of that room and we're gonna have a conversation. Yeah. And if you keep cutting up, I'm gonna ban you from coming in my office. Now that was like a jail sentence to them. If Miss Smith say you can't come in their office no more and see her, either in the morning or at lunchtime, if you just want to sit quietly and do your lunch because you want to stay out of trouble. Because she gonna let you come in there and eat because you're gonna be quiet. If she banned me from going in there, I might end up in some trouble. Nah, let me not cut the food because Miss Smith will put you out. I'm gonna hold you to a standard here.
Do you remember the first time, the first one? Because to me, like the first one has a lasting impression. Do you remember that first student in your earlier part of being dean, like that first student that reported back, like, hey, I went to college and I graduated? Do you have a picture of that person on your brain? But how did that make you feel, knowing that you had an impact on that person making those decisions?
That first student that told me that they did not feel like they were college material, I said, I don't care nothing about what, and I would, again, this is me talking to them because I need to, sometimes you got to get down to where they are and just give it to them straight, no chaser. I'd be like, I don't care nothing about what you're talking about, son, because, and I would call them son. My boys would call son. The girls love to be called girl, you know, all that. Son, I'm not listening to you. I've seen the improvement in your grades. You don't know I'm checking up on your grades. I'm watching you grow. I'm watching you turn in your assignments. Your teachers are reporting back to me because they know what type of rapport that I have with you, and they know I get in your ass, for lack of a better phrase, if you're not doing what you're supposed. I'm seeing your progress. You can get in college. Either it's on football, he was on football team, football scholarship, it doesn't matter. You can still go there and do academically well. Fast forward to graduation or around graduation, that same student came running in my office. Now, I thought something was wrong because he had just gotten into like some type of physical altercation with one of his brothers that went to the school a couple days ago. Wasn't nobody tripping on that because it was after school and those are brothers, you know, whatever. So he comes, Miss Smith, he comes screaming down the hallway. And, you know, the kids know that first of all, I'm super animated when I'm talking to them. But secondly, if I feel like somebody is hurt, I'm going to pretty much pull my hair out because I don't want anybody doing anything to these children because they already face so much outside. So can't nothing happen to them in here. So he running, Miss Smith. I'm like, son, what are you doing? I got into college, Miss Smith.
What's the clock? Do that part only on me.
Like, you gonna run down this hallway and cause me to have an anxiety attack or some type of high blood pressure, and let me see the paper, son. So he showed me the envelope. I pulled out the paper.
You thought you was having an episode of Lean on Me.
I'm like, the tears started welling up in my eyes because this child truly believed that he was not good enough to go to school because no one in his family had gone. I mean, his mom was the type of person that wanted to kick it for basketball all-star weekend because she want to bring home an NBA player. So now you understand what I'm working with.
Gotcha.
He's seeing men in and out. He don't, you know, so and I've even told young men how to be better men. I can't tell a man how to be a man, but I can tell you how you can treat a woman.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to be Playboy Central. You can be kind and you can be honest. But as far as that college letter, he got a couple of acceptance letters on football scholarship. So what? But he ended up going to school, graduated. I don't know where my child is now. He went somewhere down south, but I don't know where he is right now. But a lot of my students that graduated, they follow me on Instagram. They're like, Miss Smith, you still the same. Yeah, and I'm going to be that. So don't come at me with no foolishness because you know I'm going to be about that. But that made me proud because he was so proud and I couldn't stop the tears. And so I just had to give him a hug. I'm like, son, I'm so proud of you. And I told you you could do it, but it was only until you believed it that it was going to make any sense to you. And so,
I think that's, you know, no matter whether the students be in an environment where, you know, it's pretty intense and they don't see a lot of hope. And the first part is them, they have to believe it for themselves. You know, we always talk about, you know, Hebrews 11:1 and, you know, faith is such things hope for. But you got to recognize that if I don't believe it, my faith is not going to work. So for you being present and consistent gives them the hope that there's a possibility. Now I just have to walk it out, and that's where my consistency comes in. So okay, so let's switch gears. I want to get in and talk about this food stuff, right?
Okay.
So doing Chicago Black Restaurant Week, which this is what you said, 11 years? 9 years. 9 years. So you would be considered like an OG in the Black Restaurant Week game. And so 9 years, that would be 2015. Early stage. So I'm pretty sure you've seen some stuff, and you know, a lot of people have tried to do Black Restaurant Week across the country and all that. We're gonna park that, put a pin in that over there. We're gonna put that way down the alleyway. You know. So, I really got a story, but I ain't go there. But we can talk about that offline. Why did you decide? Like, what was going on in your entrepreneurship world where you're like, I want to do something that supports Black restaurants in Chicago? And before you answer that, because like again, for me, living at that time I was still living in Houston.
Okay,
but for me in Oklahoma, you don't see a lot of Black-owned businesses, so it wasn't a lot happening. But from a distance, like there's all these Black-owned businesses and these corporations, and you got the Chicago Defender. All this stuff is there. Why do they need it? Right? Why do they need that when they seem to have everything? So in the early stages and you planning it out, what inspired to say, like, we need something to advocate and support for Black-owned businesses? I'm going to do Chicago Black Restaurant Week.
It was because of Chicago Restaurant Week, the regular one, the one that's been going on now for 25 years now. I did not see a lot of Black, I don't even want to say I didn't see a lot of, I didn't see any Black restaurants in the Chicago Restaurant Week lineup. I just thought it was kind of odd, and I said, well, maybe they just didn't want to do it, didn't want to be a part of it, or maybe something was prohibiting them from being able to do it. But I'm also the type of person, I ain't asking permission to do anything. As long as it's legal and I'm not stepping on nobody's toes, I'm finna jump in. So when I saw that, I asked my friends on Facebook, just a random Facebook question. What would y'all think about a Chicago Black Restaurant Week where it's only Black restaurants and Black, dessert businesses, beverage businesses? Within minutes, I had over 100 responses, and I happened to be at a Black-owned event when I was typing all this stuff out on Facebook. And no matter where I go, I take a journal. So I was at a cigar event. So I'm at the cigar event having my cigar. Asked that question on Facebook. While them people were responding to that Facebook post, I purchased the domain for the website for Chicago Black Restaurant Week. I secured the social media pages for Chicago Black Restaurant Week. And I just took off from there. And then, but the ultimate reason why I wanted to do it in the first place was because I felt like I wasn't doing enough to support my community. I felt like I wasn't doing enough. So I said, Lauran, what can you do that would marry something that you love to show your support for your community? I love my community and I love to eat. So I said, Chicago Black Restaurant Week might be all right, And so that's pretty much how that took off. And I just feel like we need our own space.
I get it. It sounds really simple. Like, hey, you're in there enjoying a cigar and whatever's going on. Maybe you got whiskey, right? I understand. Like, so for me, I understand how simple it is. But the only reason why I recognize for me when those ideas come up, they're simple. Because one, I had some role models, I had examples and experiences. Like the frat really showed me a lot about how to create. And so we were not afraid to create. You had to find a way or make a way, especially you had a real process. You understand what it is. So I'm not afraid to do nothing
at all. No
fear. But that even still for the person who may not think like that. So Chicago Restaurant Week was an influence, but you said you feel like you weren't doing enough. So what was it about what was going on and the things that you were seeing that was starting to make you reflect, am I supporting Black-owned businesses enough? And then in that, I would assume you started consciously starting to support. So you were having to already do it and be a connecting person to those Black-owned businesses. So you were likely doing a lot already, but then you have this moment of, I don't believe I'm doing enough. I want to do this. Like, peel back that process, because someone's going to listen to this and watch this and be like, yeah, it sounded simple, but then reflect like, man, this has been on my soul and I've been doing this and doing this. How do I get started? Like, peel that part back and talk about that a little bit more.
So for me, at a point, I think a lot of Black people get to where they like, you know what? I'm gonna start supporting more Black businesses. Let me just actively research whatever type of business, whether it's stationery, accessories, whatever. Let me just find some Black-owned businesses and start spending my money with my people. And now again, this goes back to my parents, because if they hadn't kept me in church, I would know nothing about Kwanzaa.
Okay.
Kwanzaa and all of the Kwanzaa principles have something to do with Chicago Black Restaurant Week and the reason behind that.
So was your church AME?
No, United Church of Christ. Trinity.
That's right. Okay.
So we celebrated Kwanzaa and the Kwanzaa principles, all 7 of them. And every last Kwanzaa principle has something to do with community, of course, and us being together in support. So I said, so I started just finding, okay, I want to go shopping for an outfit for this event I'm going to. Let me go to a Black owned boutique. So it kind of started out as me searching out Black owned businesses to spend my money, because I realized that's also helping somebody's dream. And then I tell people about it. People will go shopping or do whatever they do. I'm like, let me find some Black owned food. I want to taste some Black food, whatever. So I started looking at restaurants and trying different things. And I'm like, wow, there's some really dope spots. What do people really know about this stuff? Fast forward to September of 2015, when I was at that cigar event. Chicago Restaurant Week was coming around. Like, they were getting the registrations and stuff up for that and getting people excited about it. And I support Chicago Restaurant Week because some of my favorite Michelin star restaurants are in that lineup. So I go take up on some of those deals. But I said, this Black restaurant's doing the same thing. Why don't I do something for us? And it just be all about Black owned businesses. And from there, the very first Chicago Black Restaurant Week was February 2016. And so the complaints that I got were happy complaints. Like, I ran out of everything on the first day. Mm-hmm. And think about this too. In the first quarter of any new year, who wouldn't want to have a healthy, girthy first quarter financially in their business?
Yeah, that H1 is a big deal. H1 is a big deal for any business.
Yes. Q1 is that one. Q1 and Q4. I mean, not saying 2 and 3 on it, but Q1 and Q4. How you finish and how you start. So even though it's in February, it's still giving you a boost. Not saying that I have anything to do with expansions of restaurants, but it still is a help, because you're getting an influx of customers that may or may not have known about your business unless it was for Chicago Black Restaurant Week coming up. And then people were finding out that restaurants were right around the corner from their homes.
Right. So it's amazing you even saying that, because the same challenges that you're talking about that you were addressing in Chicago, but the third largest city in the United States. Yes. And here we are in Oklahoma City and having the same conversation about creating awareness and driving traffic to and through Black owned businesses. Yes, and the same thing you just said about, I didn't know this one right around the corner was Black owned, or that creating that intentionality of whether you work with them directly or not, your work got people thinking, am I intentionally spending my money with us? Coming out of, the church and the Kwanzaa principles and being in a bonded community, in a bonded family unit, all those things put it together. But I'm curious to know, you're not from Chicago
at all. No,
you decided to do Chicago Black Restaurant Week. Now let's be honest. How did you deal with the local opposition from people who are from there and you and all that other stuff? Because you from the south side of Memphis.
And I don't let nobody forget it.
You don't.
I doubt and will not, because you need to know. But the thing that shut that conversation down, what you're talking about right now, there was a guy on one of my Facebook posts years ago when I first started this. He was like, this girl ain't even from Chicago. And she had the mindset to do something that we should have been doing in Chicago. Stop messing with her and just support the doggone thing and be glad that it's, happening. Because my thing, again, people live here all of their lives and they don't even know what's going on around them. But I took an active approach to finding Black-owned boutiques, finding shoe stores, finding restaurants, finding insurance agents, I took an active approach. And I said, I love food too much to not have this. And then what's crazy is when I had the very first one, pretty much everybody on the Chicago Black Restaurant Week list that first year, were friends of mine that owned Black restaurants. And I'm like, no, you need more visibility. I want people to know where you are. I want people to know what you serve. And that also helped to increase their marketing efforts, because now you're obligated to post this food on your pages to make people want to come in. You need to show people what your specials are. Have some events, do some different things, challenge yourself in your own business. Get creative.
Because that additional revenue allows them to have a greater marketing budget. but it also forces people to do things that they are not accustomed to doing, because this is how I look at it. We're in the same work. It's where do we go to find out how to do something for our business? Because historically, we're the ones shut out from the information. Whether we can go all the way back to emancipation and then the Red Summers and those things, because it was by design to remove that remove libraries, remove public transportation, remove the access. So we have these generations and decades of not being able to access information, but we had to be resourceful. The Black Wall Streets of the world, we were insulated. We had to figure it out. So it wasn't going to be any different years later. So here we are repeating this behavior of survival until someone says, hey, you don't have to survive like that anymore. You know what? We need this. But then you start to really find out, where is the training ground for someone to teach me how to run my business, but also optimize the cultural influences everybody else is, but it benefits us. Like, we don't have that training ground in most organizations, whether it's the restaurant associations, even your chamber of commerce, is because we're learning it on our own. You create this campaign that's not just about food. It's not just about food. It's about, I'll say, it's about you being a economic justice advocate for Black-owned businesses.
Yeah, I never looked at it like that. But that's that's definitely the truth, because they always say that there is so much power in the Black dollar. And we're clear on how if we decide to stop spending money at Walmart, do you know how much the economy would be impacted if Black people said, we ain't going to Walmart no more? Just think, that's just Walmart.
That's Operation Breadbasket. That's the Montgomery bus boycott. That's exactly how things changed when we shifted our dollar. The largest skilled workforce in America was Black people. We created the commerce, there's all this, and we decided to allocate. And so when you're growing it, and you're 9 years in, right? 9 years in, did you think Chicago Black Restaurant Week would have this influence and impact that it has now when you first started?
I don't.
What did you think was going to happen when you first started?
I ultimately, for me, and see, I'm gonna tell you this too. Yes, I love my AKA, love it. But AKA didn't teach me service. My parents taught me service to my community, or service to my family, or you serve others, or you help people that are less fortunate. My church family did Thanksgiving baskets every Thanksgiving, which was started by my mother. I'm talking about my church back in Memphis. She started a whole Thanksgiving thing where she was giving away food for families that weren't able to otherwise have a Thanksgiving. Then we did Christmas. So it just kept growing and growing from there. So service for me started with the Smith household and my church family, not no sorority. So, not knocking AKA, because trust me, AKA is bigger than I don't even know what. However, service was for me, which is why Chicago Black Restaurant Week even came to be a thing, because
But it was already in you.
Yeah, it was there.
It was already in you. The organization don't make you. I mean,
no,
you
make the organization.
Of members. Absolutely.
I make the org. I mean, my presence in the organization is what it is. I didn't become anything because I became an AKA. I was already that girl prior to me pledging, because my parents said so. Not nobody else. My parents said so, and God said so. But Chicago literally started out as me feeling like I wanted to do something to serve. That's it. Okay. And it just kept going. Fast forward to the pandemic. Now people were like, oh, I know you ain't doing Chicago Black Restaurant Week now, because we in this pandemic.
4 years in.
Please. I said, why wouldn't I do Chicago Black Restaurant Week? I'm not thinking about what's going on outside, because guess what? Meaning we've all had to pivot. Now we can drive up and pick up our food. They got the Uber, Lyft, and all them delivery services that can deliver your food, so it's still safe. I never would do anything to put anybody in harm's way. Go to these restaurants. The city had shut everybody down, but once they opened them back up to do, carry out and that delivery services, I was like, oh.
But which one of the delivery services is based in Chicago? Is it DoorDash?
They got DoorDash, Uber,
like everything is in Chicago.
Club, all them. They all here.
So they're all there. So here you are, and this is at the height of we got to get behind Black-owned restaurants thing, and those headquarters and main offices are in Chicago. I would think, as this is coming up, that you then become the resource for them to figure out how to support and how to align. Did you get that reach out from those corporations to say, we see you're doing this, it's successful, we're needing to pivot, we don't know how to pivot, we want to work with you? Did those things start happening? Did those reach outs start happening?
Even before the pandemic, I had secured, and I was somewhere doing my work, minding my whole entire Black business, and Uber Eats reached out to me and said, we see what you're doing. We really like what it is that you're doing. Let's figure out a collaboration. And that's how that took off. And, once they came back pandemic year, once they realized I wasn't finna stop, they were like, oh, well, shoot. Cause now think about it. It's for them, and a lot of other large corporations, it's always going to be a money game, which is fine. Y'all are in business to make money. Do what you do. That means more people are going to be ordering. That means there are going to be more deliveries. That's how, and so from there, I had no plan on ever quitting. And then what's so crazy is that same year, the pandemic year, which was, so February 2020 was before the pandemic hit, right? Because we didn't get shut down until middle of March. So Chicago Black Restaurant Week 2020 had already passed. And that was the same year of All-Star Weekend here in Chicago. So fast forward to February 2021, which we're still real pandemic-y. We all in the thick of it. I still didn't stop it. So they were like, how you gonna do it? And we in a whole pandemic? Easy. Y'all ordering food from Uber Eats still. Y'all getting your groceries delivered. How come you can't get your food delivered from a Black-owned business? So they were able to help the Black-owned businesses get set up so that they could still run their business because people were still ordering.
I think that's the beauty about being. Yeah, I think that's the beauty thing about being in a place like Chicago where those folks are there. You get a chance to have a direct relationship. Whereas when I did OKC Black Restaurant Weeks in that year, it was February. And March, after that, stuff here started shutting down. We had different political climate from the majority in office at the still now. And then things shut down. But because I did that, I got people from like CNN Business, other folks reaching out, asking, because no one was thinking about Black-owned restaurants in Oklahoma at that time. There wasn't a comprehensive list. There weren't questions. There were people who didn't think these restaurants are everywhere. So I want people to realize that when we create these type of campaigns, we're putting industry information into corporations that need it to know how to support us, because often we are not in those rooms. People like us that look like us are not there to influence the market and the support that's needed, because you're helping them change the way how they can support Black-owned restaurants, not just restaurants, but other types of businesses, ancillary services. So when you take a moment, OG is what you are. When you take a moment to really look at that, I think when you take a moment to look at it and process what you've created through Chicago Black Restaurant Week, do you really understand the impact of what you've created and done? Or do you just try not to think about it?
It's not even that. I just, like, it is, people really do think sometimes that folks have an ulterior motive. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she doing this because she trying to get on TV. I promise you, when them people call me and say, "Oh, we want you to come on and do, Fox, WG, and whoever," I don't be wanting to go on TV, but I do it because I created this thing for these businesses. So I feel like I need to speak up for them and do what I got to do. I don't even. It's still for Apollo. I promise you, it still is just service for me. I don't think about, oh, I've opened, the eyes of larger corporations to the point where they're giving their employees stipends to participate in Chicago. When that lady told me, some lady emailed me and was like, "Look, my company is giving, employees stipends to participate in Chicago Black Restaurant Week. Please make sure you send us the list so we'll know where to go." I said, they doing stuff like this? Didn't think twice about it. I didn't think twice about it. I just was like, okay, my thing is coming back around. Let's get these businesses signed up, because I love when people just get a whole lot of money in the first quarter. That's just how my mind works. I want our people to flourish. First of all, this being in the food industry, the restaurant industry is very hard to maintain longevity in. Mm-hmm. Not just for Black people, but when you got big ticket restaurants up here like the Signature Room and the John Hancock Building closing down after they've been in existence for 20-some, 30-some years.
Right.
That's something to think about. I'm talking about big ticket Michelin star. If y'all can shut down, a little small Black business that people ain't trying to give no funding to can shut down. And a lot of times, all somebody needs to do with us is spend money with us. And that can help us to stay afloat and be better and be bigger and grow larger and longer for our kids and stuff.
Yep. So in that year, 2021, mm-hmm. No, for me, 2020.
Okay.
Only 3 Black-owned restaurants closed that year.
Okay.
Now the others in the market, 20%. So when we look at what we have to go through as Black people in business and not having the resources, can't get the bank loans, having to figure it out, we've been able to withstand those downturns in the market versus those who seemingly have more resources and access and marketing budgets or options to be marketed, sustain. And even now, Oklahoma City, about 40 restaurants have closed in the downtown core area.
See,
that was at the end of this, like Q4. Last year, maybe one closed last year. One. So when we look at the correlations, and then you look at you've created this sustainability, you've created this campaign in the winter months where sales automatically decline between October to probably April, May, 20 to 30%. You're doing a campaign in the downturn of their sales. They got 4 or 5 months to make money for the year. Create this campaign, giving them an injection in Q1 where others don't have it. And I'm saying this to you because I really want you to process and receive how you have helped sustain an industry and a market as humble as you are. Think about it. Like you got to really, Lauren, you got to really process that you are, like you said, you are serving, doing what you know to do, influenced by your environment. You even had your own being uncomfortable, fish out of water, but you still found a way to serve and do things with purpose and intention to make an impact. Did it with service, and people are able to thrive in the 3rd largest city in the United States from this week that's in a cold winter month, and get people to go out and spend in a cold winter month in Chicago.
And they go. Because celebrities are now coming outside for a Chicago Black Restaurant.
Okay, well, let's make this a business question. So from a business place, from business, what did you do and were you able to do as a business or marketing strategy to get that type of commitment for Chicago Black Restaurant Week?
Well, once I started posting people's figures, well, not, their dollar amounts, but they would say things like, I got thousands of followers, thousands of new followers. People did start coming in from out of town to participate because, I mean, you know, Chicago is known for its food. We got everything here. You want any type of cuisine, you can find it in Chicago. Several different areas of Chicago. Chicago's known for food. So people come in town to try some stuff. Once people start saying, you know, I quadrupled my profits in the first 3 days. Those figures are crazy. And once the years start, you know, passing and, you know, people start becoming more and more aware, they have something to look forward to. And now you have the ease to order your food and still support this business. Why wouldn't I participate? And people in Chicago know where they live. They know what type of foolishness we get weather-wise up here come February. But Chicago don't shut down at all.
Yeah,
Chicago shut down.
Windy
It's a
City.
problem.
Yes, that's the Windy City. I'm gonna challenge you on something, because this is what I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that I got people to in the Oklahoma City market, Oklahoma market, to pay attention to Black-owned business, and I'll throw this in there too. No one trademarked the name Sunday Brunch in Oklahoma. Guess who owns it?
You.
No one trademarked Shop Black Oklahoma or Shop Black in Oklahoma. And I got her in 2016. Never lived here before. Guess who owns the name?
That would be you.
People are like, whatever, it's a trademark. I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I started showing the economic impact of Black-owned businesses and its contribution that people started paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
So in this small market, you know, the goal is for this February that we hit over $1 million in direct spending impact. But I also didn't learn that language until I joined the Tourism Commission.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if we do $1 million this February, that's 2.6 million in Black-owned business campaigns in 5 years. It's huge in this market.
Very huge.
I'd say that to say this to you. You talked about like the growth in those numbers. You may be doing this. If you were able to show people this is the economic impact of Chicago Black Restaurant Week from beginning to now, I think if you start to really realize that, I think when that number hits, you'll be like, man, like we did 11, 12, 13, 14 million dollars in 9 years.
Yeah. I honestly and truly can see that. I could see those possibly being the figures, because if let's just say it's 30 restaurants registered. I'm just throwing out and two of the restaurants report back and, you know, give me, you know, figures of what they did. And I'm looking at how many dishes you all served, and, you know, the people outside the door coming in, y'all running out of food. If I just looked at 2 out of 30, that's in the 5 figures right there. From one.
So what I've started doing is when first of all, it's part of our agreement. They got to give me numbers, but of course, in between that, other things I send business their way.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I kept saying after years and years and years that, y'all, this is the value you bring. It's like when you talked about with your students, and you put hope in their head and they believe that it's possible for them to go to college, or if they didn't go to college, to do something else outside of high school, constructive.
Yep.
I did the same thing with the restaurants, because when we were trying to find numbers statistically, Oklahoma doesn't track those numbers. Oklahoma still doesn't track minority and Black-owned businesses from an economic impact perspective, even to this day. The first Senate bill in Oklahoma was a Jim Crow law that was repealed in 1954. So when you think about the impact of Chicago Black Restaurant Week to how do I calculate the impact of what we've done? And then they start to realize, man, we actually make this contribution to the local economy, and therefore we deserve more support with all the resources there. I firmly believe whenever I leave Oklahoma, and if I go back to Houston or wherever I go, I would run circles around people. Cause I don't have the resources. But what I got is the work ethic that it's hard to compete with.
Yes, and that is key. You can't stop nobody that's gonna outwork you now. Certain people just gonna do it, and they gonna continue to get it done, regardless of what somebody over here is talking about, regardless of what somebody said can't be done, or you ain't gonna be able to do this. No, you can't tell me. You cannot tell me what I cannot do unless it's just something crazy. I can't be a heart surgeon tomorrow. But what I can do is share somebody a good idea for a marketing plan for their business, because I know how to do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not going to be able to do plastic surgery for anyone because I'd have to go back this way. But what I can do, I'm going to do what I can do. I'm going to do, because I'm not going to stress myself out trying to be what everybody else is being. I'm just going to do what I'm supposed to do. And that has always, as long as I'm minding my business, doing my work, that's what has worked.
Yep. All right. I got two more questions before we close it out. The first one is, so if I am based on what you've learned working with restaurants and business, it could be restaurant, any type of business, and the relationship that you build and what you know from the work that you do. What are two things that you believe that business owners should know to be successful in launching their business?
As far as the launching and the success of their business, I would say the first thing, write it down, write stuff down. Keep track of every idea, everything, and keep it close to you. The second thing is be consistent. That's really it. Like, write it down or keep track of it and be consistent. The more consistent you are, you say, for example, I'm gonna just throw this brief little schedule out. Let's say you got a 9 to 5. You got a 9 to 5, but when you come home, you're gonna have your dinner. And no matter what's going on at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. or 7 to 9, I'm going to work on my business. The consistency is what is going to drive the growth of that business. And you'll get, and as long as you're consistent in something, it's going to turn into a habit. So be consistent and write it down. Oh God, write it down.
That's a fact. So for those listening, so what she basically told you is you need to have when you're writing it down, you need to have a standard operating procedure of how you're going to run your business. You got to have processes and systems in place. And when you have your processes and systems in place, and from that point, be consistent with it. Doesn't mean that you might need to adjust some things, then change and throw it out, baby with the bathwater. But you need to be consistent. What makes companies like McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, the big chains successful is not so much the quality of their food, is they have a consistent process to make it happen. So even when the pandemic happens, Chick-fil-A still closed on Sunday, but Chick-fil-A added a line or two on the drive-through because they can do it, because they got a system. So now you're not going inside Chick-fil-A much anymore, because when I get in that line, long or not, I'm going to get to that line in less than probably 7 minutes.
You ain't waiting long at no Chick-fil-A line. I've never waited long at a Chick-fil-A line, no matter how long it looks when you pull up. You don't wait long.
You're not worried about it. You're not worried about it. You're not worried about it.
At all.
And that's the part where it challenges us as a company. It's looking at how do we create opportunities for processes, because those experiences don't happen in our market, or they're not available for us. Even maybe the knowledge or the people leading the way, they don't know it either. So how do we decide if we are going to become that learning opportunity for those businesses, learn like the importance of processes and systems? Okay. Second question. What have you learned about yourself in the last 9 years doing Chicago Black Restaurant Week?
I have learned that evidently I am a glutton for marketing, writing, registration type. I like doing all that, and it's fun. People like, do you do all that stuff? You do all of the graphics. I learned that if I'm passionate about something, I'm diving head first. If I'm creating something, I'm all in it 1,000%. And I'm working on it every day. So even when Chicago Black Restaurant Week is not going on, I'm thinking of new ideas and I'm writing that stuff down and making it plain for me. So I'll know what it is, what I'm trying to do in my next steps. I just realized that whatever I'm passionate about, you're going to know it because of the work that comes from it. So that's what I've learned about this. No matter what, if it was 20 restaurants that registered one year and then I got 80 restaurants that registered the next year, I don't care. I'm not going to stop because I know it helps somebody in their business. So if I'm passionate about something, I'm 1,001% in that thing.
So did you learn that about yourself in this process?
I learned that more about myself. Like I'm just willing to keep going.
Yeah.
I don't listen to anybody try to, put in their naysayisms into anything that I'm trying to do. Because people are always going to give you the cons with the pros. Yeah. And that's fine. You're supposed to look at all of that. I get that. But I can't constantly have that in my ear. It's not going to make me change my mind. I mean,
don't tell me about something that you haven't done.
No.
Yeah, if you haven't done it, you can't tell me about it. Yeah. So, and for so I would say 3 things as we close this out. The 2 things that you said that businesses must understand about their when they're going to be successful. I think you froze up on me. There you go.
Oh,
there are 2 things that you mentioned that people have to learn when they're going to be successful in launching their business. 1, write it down, make it plain.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And then the consistency is going to be key for you executing what you've written down. Mm-hmm. And the other part that you learn about yourself, it's you learn more that if you're passionate about it, you're going to make the time commitment toward hitting whatever that goal is. And those are important aspects of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And you see it in the success. And people can't, as much as they can say what they want to say about you as the individual and what they don't like about what you're doing, but results matter.
They absolutely do.
If you got a problem, then look at the results. And if you still got a problem, that ain't my problem. That's your problem.
That's your problem. And typically, if somebody has a problem with something that you're doing, it's because they're not doing enough themselves. And, people will find fault in what you're doing or try to, but they somewhere sitting on the couch. I didn't. So I'm going to keep taking off. I mean, it doesn't matter what area it is that I'm in. I'm going to do my research. I'm going to look into it. I'm going to, invest in whatever it is that I'm passionate about. You're not going to be able to pull me away from this thing unless I'm checking out of here. God has called me home or whatever. I want this to live beyond me. I want this to be a thing. I want this to continue because helping a Black community become a better community and being able to continue to thrive in the food industry, that's a thing that I want to continue beyond me. I don't care nothing about none of these little stupid beefs people be having, these rap beefs. And I don't care nothing about that. That's not helping nobody make no money to keep their restaurant open longer. I want people to be able to afford to send their kids to college or leave a legacy for their children. Like in their children's, it's about legacy, really. So.
I love it. Lauran, I appreciate you taking some time to join the podcast and talking about family in South Memphis and Chicago. It really is inspiring to hear like another person, because there really aren't that many of us that are doing this work for Black restaurants across the country. There are not that many of us really doing this work. There are a lot of bloggers. There are a lot of people who create content, but there are not that many of us who have decided that we're going to create activities to drive spending and support Black-owned restaurants and businesses before it was sexy, right? Because that sexiness is waning off. It's not the same passion and act of desperation we got to support as it was a few years back, because the ARPA money is gone. Let's just be honest. The ARPA money is gone.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot, and you're absolutely an inspiration to me. I stalk your page. I see what's going on. And I look to see what's she doing up there? Like, what can I do down here? Because you're doing amazing work. And for me, it's great to hear that. Sometimes I feel like here in Oklahoma, I sometimes have to drink the Kool-Aid of it's only like it is here. In terms of the support and the need for more support. When I hear you talk about some similar things, but then taking action to do it, it's definitely an inspiration to me. So I definitely appreciate your transparency and sharing. And so if somebody is visiting Chicago and they want to support you in February or support you beyond that, how can people find you and support you in your efforts?
Tell them, well, people, if you're listening in, go to CHI, blackrestaurantweek.com. I'm posting on there every day, every other day about something crazy, nothing drama filled, but I'm, always trying to get a good giggle out of people, talking about food all day. Anything that's going on in Chicago that may be beneficial to our community. I'm focusing on our community. I'm not anti anybody else. I'm just pro-Black. And I want to see us be continuously great, no matter what other type of light they try to shed on the Black community. So you want to holler at me, support what's going on, CHIBlackRestaurantWeek.com. And that's the same as the website. That is the website, CHIBlackRestaurantWeek.com. But then the Instagram, Facebook pages are CHI Black Restaurant Week.
Y'all make sure y'all support it, and I'll make sure I'll put them down in the captions. It's a great way to support. I mean, in Chicago, there's a lot of food, but when you are in town, support. You can even buy gift cards online and support them too if you so feel like it. But like we always say, be intentional with your spending and support a Black-owned restaurant or business wherever you are, especially in Chicago. And do us a favor. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com. and go to Bigger Than Food to be able to find our YouTube channel and subscribe. It helps us as we grow our channel. And like we always say, our mission is bigger than food. Make sure you are intentional of supporting a Black-owned restaurant or business, no matter where you are.